Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our second storyteller of the night, Felicia DeRosa. She will tell a story titled My Patchwork Life.
Yeah, I brought props. Okay. I'll get started just a second. Times. Okay. I'll use visual aids. Before I get started, I just wanted to take a quick second to say that this month, in addition to celebrating Pride, I'm also celebrating Romani History Month. Yay! And this is a paper doll. Okay. Let's see if I can do this without messing up. Okay. From when I was very little until I was almost 8, I spent most of my time with my great Uncle Tony and my Aunt Edith in a boldly decorated, lavish home filled with garish Catholic iconography. They had this crazy lamp of the Virgin Mary holding the fallen Christ. It was bronze, and it had a lampshade that looked a lot like fancy ladies' underwear. It would rain oil like tears from heaven all around her. And everything in their house was covered in this snazzy, clear plastic. Tony once told me, "Hey, Peanut, you know why they call me Tony?" No. "When I come to this country, they stamped my head. To New York." I loved my Uncle Tony. Oh, God. Saying I was inquisitive as a child is an understatement. A continuous, never-ending stream of questions flowed from me from the moment I woke up in the morning until the instant my head hit the pillow at night. I would ask Tony about our family and why we came to the US. And he would get real serious and put his arm around me, and he would talk to me about the anti-gypsyism and the violence that he experienced as a kid, our 500 years of enslavement and our long diaspora, of our camps getting raided and burned, of being chased out of villages, the men of our clan getting hung from trees. It was impossible, he said, for an honest people to make an honest living, so we come here. Now we have work, a house, there's money, and we don't got to worry that some god's going to come along, snatch you up, and put you in any orphanage. So here I am, the offspring of immigrants and refugees. Sastipe, ciao, hello. Taves bastalo amala, benvenuti amici. Welcome, my neighbors. That was your basic greeting in Romanes, Italian, and English, which represents so much of my patchwork heritage. Romani culture is very old. It's rooted deep in India, where we originated, and it is layered with the influences of every culture that we've interacted with over the better part of 1,600 years of forced nomadism. The Roma, in very brief, not to be mistaken for Irish travelers, are a diasporic, multi-ethnic, global POC community that found its way into Europe around the 13th century, where we currently exist as the largest, most discriminated against minority. Our language is a linguistic descendant of Hindi, Bengali, and Punjabi, with upwards of 60 or so dialects. Now, I know all of this because I was fortunate enough to be raised by the remaining immigrant elders of my mother's clan. They would spend most of my childhood telling me to keep the truth of who we were from the outsiders. And I loved my family, and I wanted to do my best to help us stay safe, so I did as they said, no problem. So while my cousins decided rather unilaterally, hey, we're in America, let's be Americans, and embraced our host culture, thereby contributing to our own erasure, I I had our culture, or Romany pen, bestowed upon me, and I loved every single minute of it. I really did. Growing up with my family, I had a lot of, this is where she forgets her script. Okay, I'm gonna go off the cuff, because I was trying to remember it word for word, and I can't do that, so. I got the important stuff. As a kid, being, a somewhat ethnically ambiguous, mostly Afro-Arabic poor kid out in the sun all day, I had to deal with a lot of knuckle-dragging Nimrods who would throw stupid slurs at me, saying things like, "Go back to your caravan," or being forced out of retail environments with people saying things like, "We don't serve your kind here." Sometimes I was mistaken for indigenous, other times I was mistaken for Latinx, and then I get called different stupid words. And I had to process a lot of that. And I dealt with that, and then eventually, it was the 1980s, and my mother decided we were going to move to Florida to be closer with family because safety in numbers. Now, this was the 1980s, as I say, and AIDS happened. And suddenly, the entire country was on a witch hunt for anyone who wasn't cisgendered and heteronormative. Now, this was especially stressful for me because, as it happens, I was assigned male at birth. But I knew with absolute certainty that I was a female person since forever. And I am sadly attracted to dark and broody sad boys with a chip on their shoulder. How you doing? Times being what they were added to the extreme tension of being in a deeply traditional lineage meant not a lot of rainbows. And I found myself having to live a composite, assimilated version of myself just to get by. And it was painful because I wasn't being who I was supposed to be, but I was afraid of being found out. I was afraid that I was going to be murdered or something terrible. So this persona that I lived in was a way to assimilate so that I could be safe and not feel like I was going to be run out of town or hung from a tree. So I did my best to get by, and my mother, she took care of us as best as she could, but she blamed me for everything that ever went wrong in her life. You try and make your mom love you, what can you do? So dealing with all of this and realizing I wasn't living myself and wasn't living my life or being my own authentic self, eventually I got through high school. And I realized something, that with the last of my elders gone, I was the only one really upholding my cultural norm. I'd remember my grandma Rose that I grew up with. Well, technically, she was my great aunt, somewhere in her 90s at the time. And she would, early on in her life, she had experienced a series of small strokes that had resulted in her becoming nonverbal and stuck in her own head, except when I was around. So I would go to visit her, and she would snap back into focus. She spoke in a blend of broken English, Romanes, and Italian. Now, my first language was Romanes, technically. I grew up around Italian speakers, so we got along fine. And she taught me all about our heritage and treatments and remedies within the house. You know, she came from a long line of midwives and healers. And she was actually one of the ones that helped bring in a lot of her own siblings into the world. She taught me mysticism, and she taught me our long history of fortune telling. So, while the men in my family at that time had been teaching me our history and hunting and how to fix old cars, the women of my family taught me our spirituality and our culture and passed on to me 200 years worth of family recipes. My elders kept me grounded. My elders helped me feel connected when I needed to. So when I finished high school, I ran away to San Francisco to study art because by then I had been through so much. You know, cops harassed me, peers mocked me, my own parents abused me. I needed to get away. So I studied art, I traveled a bit, I figured out about myself, but I didn't know what to do with it because I was still hiding. So eventually I did what I always do, and I dove into my art, and I dove into my art, and I learned how to be more myself in whatever way that I could. I traveled around, I fell in love, I got married, and eventually I found myself in Ohio. Skip ahead a little bit, and it's 2014, and that's when my mother passed away. And all of a sudden, I had to deal with cleaning up after her and settling her things. So I did that, and I'm sitting there rummaging through my mom's stuff, and it occurs to me, I have not been really living my life. Had I ever? Coming out, I know my time is almost up. Coming out was the hardest thing I've ever done because I had to come out to myself first. And it was so difficult because I came out not only as a queer trans woman, but as the proud Roma I've always been. And so I embraced my heritage and I embraced my identity and came out as myself. And through all the pain, I feel like over the last 8 years, I've been able to cobble together a true sense of my authenticity. Art project. All of us are allegories. We are the summation, a patchwork of our entire lived experiences that brought us to right here and right now. And it's beautiful. So I stand here today, and sometimes I might identify as an artist, and that's true, but I'm so much more than that. I am art. I am a proud queer Romani trans woman. I am an activist. I am an educator. I am a warrior queen, and I've got your back. But I am also that old world cook that was going to invite you to dinner. I'm a mother confessor. I'm a mystic and a fortune teller. I am the unique summation of my entire family lineage and my entire family. So, come avatu, te voglio bene. The love that I leave with you here tonight, this is my identity. My name is Felicia DeRosa. Nastuk.